What feels like missing is a mind standing in two places at once. When you stand fully where you are, nothing calls you elsewhere. When I say a mind standing in two places at once, I am pointing to inner division. You are here, but part of you is elsewhere. You are in the gym, but thinking of how you look. You are learning, but thinking of what it will get you. You are silent, but waiting for recognition. You are alive, but negotiating with the future. That is two places, one body, two psychological locations. This split is the source of restlessness. When you stand fully where you are, nothing calls you elsewhere. This is not poetry, it is mechanics. When attention is whole, there is no excess energy to leak into fantasy, ego, memory, or ambition. The moment something calls you elsewhere, it reveals this. You were never fully here to begin with. Desire is not the problem. Ambition is not the problem. Even ego is not the problem. Division is. Standing fully where you are means action without commentary, effort without identity, movement without self reference. Not I am doing this, just this is happening. No watcher, no narrator, no future payoff running in the background. The mind that wants to be somewhere else is a mind that is not capable of being here. Peace is not something you achieve, it is what remains when there is no split. Now I'll say the part where you rarely softens. What you feel missing is not purpose, it is not discipline, it is not direction, it is single location consciousness. Right now, your mind trains but watches itself train, learns but evaluates itself learning, seeks silence but wants credit for silence. That is standing in two places. The moment you truly stand here, no improvement project, no self image, no future self, the search collapses and something terrifying happens. Nothing is missing, which means the ego has no job left. That is why the mind resists this truth so strongly. Single location consciousness. This is not a spiritual idea, it is a structural description of the mind. A mind can either be 1. In contact with reality, or 2. In contact with itself. It cannot do both at once. Most people live in 2. Why the ego creates 2 locations? The ego survives by monitoring. It asks, how am I doing? How does this look? What does this say about me? Where will this lead? So even while you act, a second mental entity is scoring, narrating, comparing, storing identity points. This is the observer self. It stands elsewhere, watching the doer. That split is tension. Trains, but watches itself train. When you lift, part of you is not lifting. It is admiring form, judging intensity, imagining future results, checking identity. I am disciplined. So the action is contaminated. Not morally, energetically. The body works, the mind leaks. Learns but evaluates itself learning. This is fatal to intelligence. Real learning requires submission to the unknown. But evaluation says, am I smart enough? Is this useful? Can I apply this later? How does this improve me? That turns learning into a transaction. And truth does not appear in transactions. Seeks silence but wants credit for silence. This is the most subtle trap. Use it quietly, but inwardly you think, I am becoming deeper. I am not like others. I am doing real inner work. That thought alone destroys silence, because silence is absence of self-reference. The moment the self takes credit, noise returns. Why standing fully here ends the search? The search exists only because the seeker is split from experience. The moment there is no future self to improve, no image to protect, no identity to polish, there is nothing to move toward. Movement requires lack. When lack disappears, movement collapses. That collapse feels like emptiness, groundlessness, irrelevance of ambition, which the ego interprets as death. Nothing is missing is terrifying, not because it is false, because it makes you unnecessary. If nothing is missing, who strives? Who becomes? Who proves? Who accumulates meaning? The ego is a function designed to fill gaps. When there are no gaps, it has no function, so it panics. It resurrects goals, self improvement, spiritual identity, productivity, even suffering. Anything is better than irrelevance. Why the mind resists this truth? Because truth here is not additive, it subtracts you, not the body, not intelligence, not action, but the central narrator. And without that narrator, life still happens, work still happens, effort still happens, but no one is owning it. That is unbearable for the ego. So, you don't need a better life, you need fewer psychological locations. And then, the day you stop trying to arrive somewhere else, you discover you were never meant to travel. You don't need a better life, you need fewer psychological locations. A better life assumes a current life that is insufficient, a future state that will correct it, a self who must travel from here to there. That entire structure is psychological movement. But look closely. Your actual life, breath, sensation, perception, action is never lacking. What lacks is the idea about life. So the problem is not quality of experience, it is multiplicity of reference points. What is a psychological location? A psychological location is any mental place where you are not here. Examples: where I'll be when I'm disciplined, who I'll become after success, the version of me without confusion, the enlightened me, the respected me, the healed me. Each one creates a parallel existence. Your body is here, your mind is commuting. That commute is suffering. Fewer locations is less friction. Every extra psychological location creates comparison, tension, impatience, self judgment, hope plus fear, two sides of the same coin. When there is only one location, no comparison is possible, no arrival is needed, no improvement is urgent. Action continues, but without friction. This is not passivity, it is effort without psychological drag. The day you stop trying to arrive somewhere else, arrival implies distance. Distance implies a future, a reward, a corrected version of now. But now, ask this, not intellectually, directly, where exactly is this elsewhere? Not conceptually, experientially. You cannot point to it, it only exists as thought. So, what you've been doing your whole life is running toward a mental abstraction, powered by dissatisfaction, measured by identity. That is the treadmill. Why arrival never satisfies? Because the moment you arrive, a new location is created, a higher standard appears, the ego relocates again. So the system is self perpetuating, not evil, just mechanical. The ego is movement. You discover you were never meant to travel. This is the most radical line. It does not say you arrived, it says travel itself was the illusion. There was never a journey, there was only restlessness, misinterpreted as purpose. Life is not a path, it is a field. You don't go anywhere in a field, you operate within it. What happens when travel stops? Three things, none of them romantic. A strange stillness. Not peace, not joy, just absence of urgency. Loss of narrative. No I am becoming. No story arc. No inner autobiography. Clean action. You still train, you still work, you still build, but there is no future self feeding on it. Action becomes precise, quiet, almost impersonal. Why this feels dangerous? Because your identity was built on trajectory. Who you are without improvement, becoming, overcoming, arriving. The ego hears this as annihilation. But nothing essential is lost, only the burden. So, the problem was never that you weren't enough. The problem was that you were trying to go somewhere. And more sharply, when movement stops, life does not end. The noise does. Sit with this, not to practice it, not to apply it. Just see how often today your mind tries to stand elsewhere. That seeing is the reduction of locations. Nothing else is required. So, you are not restless because life is incomplete. You are restless because the mind refuses to stay where the body already is. Every attempt to improve yourself, arrive somewhere, or become someone else is just the ego changing locations. Truth does not demand movement, It reveals itself when movement ends. When there is only here, no future self, no corrected version, no audience, life does not become smaller. It becomes exact. And in that exactness, nothing is missing.